The great hall of the palace sparkled with 1,000 lights. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, throwing rainbow colors across the marble floor. Hundreds of guests filled the room, their expensive clothes shining in the light. They were all here for the same reason, to celebrate peace between the Empire and the Coalition. After 50 years of Cold War, the two greatest powers in the galaxy were finally friends. Princess stood beside her mother, the Empress, on the raised platform at the front of the hall. Wore a silver dress that reached the floor, but she felt uncomfortable in it. She always felt uncomfortable at these events. The princess was 19 years old, with dark hair that fell to her shoulders and eyes that never stopped watching, never stopped learning. While the other guests talked and laughed, studied them. She noticed everything. The Empress spoke with Lord, the commander of the military. He was tall and proud, with medals covering his chest. Beside them stood Ambassador, the leader of the delegation. They looked similar to but their skin had a blue tone and their eyes were completely black. Smiled as he spoke, but noticed the smile never reached those dark eyes. "Your Majesty," said in his smooth voice, "this treaty marks a new age for our people. Together, we will bring order to the outer systems." The Empress nodded gracefully. "Peace benefits everyone, Ambassador. The wars of the past should stay in the past." Barely listened. She had heard these speeches before. Politicians always said the same things at these events. Her mind wandered as servers moved through the crowd, carrying trays of food and drinks. The servants wore simple gray uniforms and kept their heads down as they worked. No one paid attention to them. They were invisible. But saw one of them. He moved differently than the others. The other servants walked quickly, nervously, always afraid of making a mistake. This one moved with control. Each step was careful and balanced. His head stayed down but could see his eyes moving, watching everything, just like she did. He was tall for a servant, with broad shoulders that the gray uniform couldn't quite hide. Something about him pulled at her memory, the way he walked, the way he held his shoulders. She had seen it before. The servant came closer to the platform, carrying a tray of wine glasses. Heart started to beat faster. She leaned slightly forward, trying to see his face. He kept it turned away, hidden behind the other servants. Then he looked up for just a moment. His breath caught in her throat. Dark eyes met hers. A face she had seen in her dreams for 3 years. A face she thought she would never see again. The scar above his left eyebrow. The strong jaw. The way his mouth turned down slightly at the corners, like he was always thinking about something serious. It was impossible. He was dead. The reports said he died 3 years ago defending some human colony on the frontier. She had read those reports 100 times. She had cried when she read them. But he was here, in the palace, in her home. Turned to her mother without thinking. The words came out before she could stop them, quiet but desperate. "Mom, it's him." The Empress stopped talking mid-sentence. Lord turned to look at the princess. Ambassador's smile faded. The guests nearby stopped their conversations. The quiet spread through the hall like ripples in water. Within seconds, the entire palace fell silent. Hundreds of people stood frozen, watching the princess and the Empress. The Empress said softly, "Who are you talking about?" Couldn't speak. She could only stare at the servant who had stopped moving. He stood completely still now, the tray in his hands, his eyes locked with hers. In that moment she saw everything in his look: recognition, warning, and something else. A plea, "Trust me." The Empress followed her daughter's gaze to the servant. She studied him for a moment, then her eyes widened slightly. She was very good at hiding her emotions, but knew her mother well. The Empress remembered too. 3 years ago, Princess had done something stupid. She had left the palace in secret, wanting to see the galaxy without guards and ceremonies. She took a transport ship to a frontier world, pretending to be a student. For 2 wonderful weeks she was free. Then the pirates came. They grabbed her from a market, threw her in a cargo hold with other prisoners. They planned to sell her as a slave. They had no idea she was a princess. She was just another girl to them. The man who saved her wasn't a soldier. He wasn't part of any rescue team. He was just one man who happened to be on that pirate ship, locked in a different cell. The pirates had caught him stealing supplies. His name was. Remembered the sound of plasma fire, screaming, the cell door exploding open, standing there, blood running down his arm, a stolen weapon in his hand. "Come on," he had said. "We're leaving." He fought 20 pirates to get her and the other prisoners to an escape pod, 20 armed criminals against one injured man. He should have died. Humans weren't supposed to be that dangerous. They were a young species, new to the galaxy, with weak bodies and no special abilities, but moved like death itself. He used everything as a weapon, pipes, tools, even broken glass. When his gun ran out of power, he used his hands. He got everyone to safety. Then he disappeared before anyone could thank him properly. 2 weeks later, the news reported that a human mercenary named died defending a colony from raiders. Had tried to find out more, but there was nothing. Just a name and a death report. Now he stood in her palace, alive, dressed as a servant. "Guards," Lord said quietly. His hand moved to his weapon. Around the hall, soldiers began to move toward the platform. "Wait," said, but her voice came out too soft. The servant didn't run. He set down his tray carefully. His hands moved to his sides, away from any weapons. He looked calm, like he expected this, like he planned for it. "Your Majesty," Ambassador said, his voice sharp, "that human is clearly an infiltrator. He must be arrested immediately." The Empress raised one hand, stopping the guards. "Explain yourself, human. Why are you in my palace?" Opened his mouth to answer. Then the first explosion hit. The windows along the east wall blew inward. Glass flew across the hall. People screamed. The lights flickered. A second explosion followed, then a third. The palace shook. Smoke began to fill the air. In the chaos, lost sight of guards surrounded her and the Empress, forming a protective circle. Through the smoke and running people, she searched for him. She had to find him. She had to know why he was here. But he was gone, vanished like a ghost, again. And somewhere in the burning palace, something much worse than explosions was already moving. The smoke made everything harder to see. People ran in all directions, pushing and shouting. The palace guards tried to create order, but more explosions kept hitting the outer walls. Felt her mother's hand grip her arm tightly as they were pushed toward the inner chambers. Lord shouted orders to his soldiers. Ambassador and his guards moved with them, weapons drawn. "Get the royal family to the safe room," commanded. "Seal all entrances. This is a terrorist attack." They moved through the corridors quickly. The safe room was deep in the palace, behind 3 security doors. It was built to survive anything. But as they ran, couldn't stop thinking about, why was he here? The explosion started right after he was discovered. That couldn't be chance. They reached the first security door. A guard pressed his hand to the scanner. The door started to open. Then someone grabbed his shoulder and pulled her backward, away from the group. She spun around, ready to fight. It was him. "Don't scream," he said quietly. "Please, I need you to listen." "You started," but he covered her mouth with his hand gently. "The explosions are just noise," whispered quickly. "They're outside the palace. The real danger is already inside, with you, right now." His eyes went wide. She pushed his hand away. "What are you talking about?" This whole treaty is fake. They plan to kill your mother, kill you, and blame it on humans. They want to start a war." "That's insane," said, but doubt crept into her voice. She thought about smile that never reached his eyes. "Is it?" asked. "Think about it. Who benefits if the Empire goes to war with Earth? Humans are weak, scattered, we'd lose. But while your Empire fights us, who becomes the strongest power in the galaxy?" This mind raced. It made horrible sense. "I don't believe you," she said, but her voice shook. "Then come with me or don't," said. "But your mother is walking into a trap. The safe room isn't safe. Control it now." stared at him. 3 years ago, this man saved her life. He fought 20 pirates when he could have escaped alone. He could have sold her to the highest bidder, but instead he freed everyone. She remembered his words. Humans don't abandon people. She made her decision. Stop them, she told. Stop my mother from going in there. Nodded once. He reached into his servant uniform and pulled out a small device. When I activate this, stay down. Before could ask what he meant, press the button. A high-pitched sound filled the corridor. Every in the group suddenly grabbed their heads and screamed. Their black eyes seemed to vibrate. They dropped their weapons and fell to their knees. Sonic Disruptor explained. Works on neural systems, doesn't hurt anyone else. The guards spun around, confused. They saw holding the device. They saw their princess standing with him. Lord's face turned red with anger. Seize him, shouted. The human is attacking us. No, stepped in front of him. Listen, they are the threat, not him. The Empress held up her hand again, stopping everyone. She looked at with cold eyes. Human, you have 5 seconds to explain before my guards shoot you. Speak. Didn't waste time. His words came out fast and clear. The safe room has been compromised. The planted explosives inside it 3 days ago during the security inspection. Ambassador volunteered his people for that inspection. Remember, the moment you seal that door, you die. They've been planning this for months. Lies. Ambassador struggled to his feet, still affected by the sonic device. He's trying to divide us. This is exactly what humans do. They spread doubt and fear. Then prove me wrong, said calmly. Send a scanner drone into the safe room. Check for explosives. If I'm lying, kill me. The Empress studied both men. Her face showed nothing but knew her mother was thinking fast, making calculations, weighing odds. Lord, the Empress said, send a drone. His jaw tightened. Your Majesty, we don't have time for. I gave you an order, Commander. Something changed in his expression. Just for a moment, saw anger flash across his face. Not the anger of a loyal soldier who disagreed with orders. The anger of someone whose plan was falling apart. You too, whispered, looking at, you're part of this. His hand moved toward his weapon. He was fast, but was faster. The human kicked a fallen guard's plasma rifle up from the floor, caught it in midair, and fired. The shot hit his weapon, melting it before he could draw. Spun the rifle around and aimed it at the commander. Don't, said quietly. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I will. The corridor exploded into chaos. Shouted commands. Half the guards moved to protect the Empress. The other half aimed their weapons at. The guards started to recover from the sonic attack. Ambassador screamed about human treachery. Then another voice cut through the noise. Everyone stop. The Empress's command froze them all. She stepped forward, moving past her guards, and walked straight to. She stopped 1 meter from him. The human didn't lower his weapon, but he didn't point it at her either. I remember you, the Empress said quietly. 3 years ago, you saved my daughter's life. Yes, Your Majesty. You were reported dead. I got better. Despite everything, the Empress's mouth twitched, almost a smile. How did you discover this plot? Information networks said. Us humans, we're good at gathering secrets. We have to be. We're weak compared to everyone else, so we listen, we watch, we learn. 3 months ago, a human smuggler named intercepted communications. They were planning something big, something that would destroy Earth. We investigated. And you came here alone, the Empress asked, to warn us. Who would believe a human without proof? Lowered his rifle slightly. I needed to get inside, see things for myself, get evidence, and I needed to be here when they made their move to stop it. Lord laughed bitterly. You expect us to believe this story, a lone human playing hero. It's what we do, said simply. Humans don't give up, even when the odds are bad, especially then. The Empress looked at her daughter. Do you trust him? Didn't hesitate. Yes, Mom, completely. The Empress turned to, send the drone now. expression went cold. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Your Majesty." He pulled a second weapon from his belt. Before anyone could react, he grabbed the Empress and pressed the gun to her head. His other guards moved instantly, forming a protective circle around him. Half the soldiers stayed loyal to the Empress. The other half aimed their weapons at them. "I'm sorry it came to this," said. "The plan was cleaner, but humans always complicate things." Started to move but pressed the gun harder against the Empress's head. "Don't. She dies if you try anything." "Why?" asked, her voice breaking. Why would you betray us?" "Because your mother is weak," said. "She wants peace, cooperation. She's forgotten what made our empire great, the understand strength. Together we'll rule the galaxy properly, without humans, without mercy." A voice came from behind them. "Wrong answer." Everyone turned. More figures emerged from the smoke, moving fast and silent. They wore combat armor and carried human weapons. At the front walked a man with gray hair and a face. "You're surrounded, Commander," said with a smile. "And we humans, we really don't like people who grab women and threaten them." His face went pale. He was trapped. His eyes darted around, looking for escape. That's when Princess moved. She grabbed a fallen weapon and fired. Shot hit the ceiling above his head. Lights and broken metal rained down on him. He ducked instinctively, loosening his grip on the Empress for just a second. That was all needed. The human moved like lightning. He closed the distance in 2 steps, grabbed his weapon hand and twisted hard. Bone cracked, screamed and dropped the gun. The Empress threw herself backward, away from the fight. Loyal guards immediately surrounded her, pulling her to safety. His corrupted soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts filled the corridor, and his team returned fire from behind cover, slammed against the wall and knocked him unconscious with 1 punch. Then he grabbed and pulled her down behind a fallen statue as energy blasts burned the air where she had been standing. "You learned to shoot," said, almost proud. "You taught me to fight impossible odds," replied, breathing hard. "I've been training." "Good," handed her a spare weapon from his belt. "Stay behind me. This is about to get worse." He was right. The guards had fully recovered from the sonic attack. Ambassador shouted orders in his own language. More emerged from side corridors. They had been hiding in the palace all along, waiting for their moment. The treaty was always a trap. The corridor became a war zone. Energy weapons lit up the smoke. Stone walls exploded into dust. Ancient artwork burned. The palace itself was being destroyed from inside. His team fought with practiced skill. There were 6 of them, all humans, all wearing mismatched armor that looked like it came from a dozen different sources. But they moved together perfectly. They used every bit of cover. They conserved ammunition. When one person reloaded, another covered them. This wasn't their first fight. Shouted over the noise. "The Empress needs to get out of here. We can't hold them off forever." "Working on it," fired twice, hitting a soldier in the shoulder. The alien went down. "Your Majesty, is there another way out?" The Empress crouched behind her guards, surprisingly calm for someone who almost died twice in 5 minutes. "The maintenance tunnels, behind that wall panel, but they're sealed." "Sealed isn't locked," said. He looked at. "Remember what I told you 3 years ago, when things look impossible." "There's always a way," said. "You just have to be crazy enough to find it." Smiled. "That's my girl." He turned to, "Cover us, we're going through the wall." "Through," laughed. "I love working with you." He pulled something from his pack and threw it too, a small explosive charge. Caught it and ran to the wall panel the Empress had indicated. Followed him, firing behind them to keep enemies down. Placed the charge, set the timer for 5 seconds and pulled close to shield her with his body. The explosion was smaller than the ones outside but much louder in the enclosed space. The wall panel blew inward, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. Metal and stone scattered everywhere. "Go," pushed the Empress and her guards toward the hole. "Move." The royal group scrambled through the opening, and his team backed toward the tunnel, firing constantly. One of his people went down, hit in the leg. Two others grabbed her and dragged her through the hole. "Come on!" screamed from the tunnel. A soldier appeared from the smoke, weapon aimed at its head. There was no time to dodge, no time to shoot first. Then fired, her shot was perfect, the collapsed. Looked at her in surprise. She had just killed someone. Her hands shook slightly, but her eyes were steady. "I told you," she said. "I've been training." They ran into the tunnel, came last, throwing another charge behind them. This one sealed the entrance, buying them precious time. The tunnel was narrow and dark. Emergency lights along the walls gave just enough light to see. The ceiling was low. They had to duck slightly, had to bend almost double, but they moved fast anyway. "Where does this lead?" asked the Empress. "Multiple places," she replied, breathing hard from running. "The palace is old. These tunnels were built for servants and maintenance workers. There are exits all over the complex." "They'll expect that," said. "They'll cover all the obvious exits." "Then we use an unexpected one," said. He looked at. "You studied palace history, right? As part of your education." "Of course," said. "I know every wing, every—" She stopped. "Wait, the old archive section. It's been sealed for 50 years, structurally unsafe. They were supposed to tear it down but never got around to it." "Is there a tunnel to it?" asked. "Yes, but—" "Perfect, lead us there." They followed through the maze of tunnels. Behind them they could hear sounds, metal bending, explosions. They were cutting through the sealed entrance. They had maybe 10 minutes head start. "Why the archive?" the Empress asked as they ran. "It's a dead end." "Maybe," said, "but dead ends are where humans do our best work." They reached a junction where 5 tunnels met, pointed to the rightmost one. "That way, but I'm serious about it being unsafe. The floor is unstable. There are holes everywhere." "We'll be careful," said. "Better than fighting in the corridors." They entered the tunnel to the old archives. Almost immediately the difference was obvious. This tunnel hadn't been maintained. Cracks ran along the walls. Parts of the ceiling had collapsed. The floor had gaps where you could see darkness below. They moved slowly, testing each step. An injured team member bit her lip to keep from crying out in pain. One of the loyal guards carried her. Finally they reached a door. It was old, made of real wood instead of metal. A chain and lock held it closed. Looked at the lock, then simply kicked the door. The old wood splintered. The chain broke. The door swung open. Beyond was the archive. Rows and rows of shelves filled with old data storage devices, books made of paper, ancient screens. The ceiling was 3 stories high, held up by columns, but several columns had fallen. There were holes in the ceiling where you could see the sky. The explosions outside had damaged this section badly. "Spread out," ordered. "Look for anything we can use. Weapons, communication devices, another exit, anything." The group scattered through the archives, immediately found an old communication console and started working on it. "This might still work," he muttered, "if I can bypass the power restrictions." He walked to a fallen column and studied it. Then he looked up at the damaged ceiling. He was planning something. She could see it in his eyes. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That sometimes the best defense is to make your enemy come to you on your terms. They have more soldiers, better weapons, and they're trained fighters." "Yes," he agreed, "but they're not fighting for their lives. They're fighting to complete a mission. That's different. Humans know the difference." "I don't understand." Looked at her seriously. "When humans fight, we're not just trying to win. We're trying to survive, to protect what matters. That makes us dangerous in ways that training and weapons can't match. 3 years ago, I told you humans don't abandon people. I meant it. Your mother gave me a chance to explain when she could have just killed me. You trusted me when you had no reason to. I won't abandon either of you now." "They're coming," one of the guards called out. "I can hear them in the tunnel." Good, said. He turned to everyone in the room. Listen carefully. We have about 2 minutes to prepare. Here's what we're going to do. He explained his plan quickly. It was crazy. It required perfect timing. The odds of success were terrible, but as listened, she understood something. This was how humans thought. They didn't calculate odds and give up when the numbers were bad. They just found a way forward anyway. The sounds in the tunnel grew louder, shouting in footsteps, weapons powering up. Everyone took their positions, stood in the center of the room, visible and exposed. A perfect target, wanted to pull him to safety, but she understood. He was the bait. The soldiers burst through the door, 20 of them. They saw standing alone and smiled. This would be easy. They were very, very wrong. Raised his hand and snapped his fingers once. Everything exploded at the same time. The damaged columns that had studied earlier weren't just damaged. His team had rigged them with the last of their explosives. When snapped his fingers, it was a signal. The charges went off, not all at once but in sequence. The first column fell toward the door, blocking it and trapping the soldiers inside. The second column fell sideways, creating a barrier. The third cracked but stayed standing, raining debris down on the enemy positions. At the same moment, his team opened fire from hidden positions behind the shelves. The scattered, looking for cover, but had chosen this battlefield carefully. The fallen columns created narrow spaces where they couldn't use their numbers' advantage. They had to come through small gaps, 1 or 2 at a time. Didn't waste time. He ran to the nearest soldier and fought him hand to hand. The alien was bigger and stronger but was faster. He dodged a punch, grabbed the soldier's arm and used his own momentum to flip him over. They crashed into a shelf, bringing down hundreds of old data storage devices. Fired from behind an overturned desk, giving cover to her mother and the wounded. The Empress watched everything with sharp eyes. She saw how moved, how he turned every object into a weapon, how he made the environment fight for him. She was starting to understand why her daughter admired humans so much. They adapt so quickly, the Empress said quietly. He's been in this room for 5 minutes and already knows every advantage point. It's not just him, Mom said. It's all of them. Watch. His team worked like a single organism. When one person ran out of ammunition, another provided covering fire. When it got too close, they retreated to a new position and forced the enemy to follow into another trap. They used ropes to pull shelves down, blocking paths. They threw dust and old papers to obscure vision. They fought smart, not strong. But there were too many. For every one that went down, 2 more came through the gaps. The humans were running out of options. Then Ambassador himself walked through the broken door. He looked at the chaos and smiled. Impressive, he said loudly. For humans, but ultimately pointless. You cannot win this fight. Don't need to win, called back. He was breathing hard, covered in dust and blood, but still standing. Just need to survive long enough. Long enough for what? Laughed. No one is coming to save you. My fleet is in orbit. Your loyal military commanders are dead or captured. In 1 hour, the Empire will belong to us. And Earth will burn. You made a mistake, said calmly. You told us your plan. Smile faded. What? Held up the old communication console. Its screen glowed with active transmissions. This archive, it has direct connections to the old military communication satellites, the ones you forgot about because they're so outdated. For the last 10 minutes, we've been broadcasting everything, every word you said. Everyone on this planet heard your confession. His face went cold. Kill them all. The remaining soldiers attacked together. It was chaos. Plasma fire everywhere. Grabbed her mother and pulled her behind better cover. A blast hit the wall above them, showering them with broken stone. Fought 3 soldiers at once. He ducked under a punch, grabbed a metal pole from the rubble and used it to deflect plasma shots. When it got too hot, he threw it at one soldier's face and dove for a fallen weapon. But there were too many. A soldier grabbed from behind. Another aimed a weapon at his head. It was over. Then the ceiling exploded. Not from damage, from ships. Military ships blasted through the old roof, weapons firing. They hit the soldiers with precision strikes. Drop troops came down on ropes, heavily armed, wearing the Empress's colors. Within seconds, the situation reversed. They were now the ones surrounded. A commander dropped from the ceiling and saluted the Empress. "Your Majesty, we received your broadcast. The entire capital heard confession. The military is moving against all positions. We have them." The Empress stood up, brushing dust from her clothes. Despite everything, she looked regal. "And Lord." "In custody, Your Majesty. He's talking, trying to save himself. He's giving us names of every conspirator." Tried to run. He made it 3 steps before tackled him. They hit the ground hard, fought back, but he was a diplomat, not a soldier. Pinned him easily. "You spat, you ruined everything, one human, how?" "Because humans don't quit," said simply. "You planned for months. You had resources, soldiers, inside people, you had everything, but you forgot one thing. When humans fight, we're not fighting to complete a mission. We're fighting to survive. And we're really, really good at surviving." Soldiers pulled away and secured him. The battle was over. They had won. Limped over too and offered him a hand up. Not bad for a guy who's supposed to be dead. "Who said I was a guy?" replied with a tired smile. "Maybe I'm a ghost." "Ghosts don't bleed," pointed at the cut on his forehead. "Details." Ran to them. She looked at, and for a moment neither spoke. Then she punched him in the shoulder, hard. "Al, what was that for?" "For being dead for 3 years," she said. Her eyes were wet. "For letting me think you died, for making me read that report over and over." "I'm sorry," said quietly. "I had to disappear. The work I do, it's dangerous. If people knew I was alive, they could use that information against me, against people I care about. And now everyone knows anyway." He shrugged. "Guess I need a new plan." The Empress approached them. Her guards tensed, hands on weapons, but she waved them back. She stopped in front of. For a long moment she just looked at him. Then she did something that shocked everyone. She bowed, just slightly, just enough. "You saved my life," she said. "And my daughter's life twice now. The Empire owes you a debt." "No debt," said. "I did what was right." "Nevertheless," the Empress straightened. "The broadcast worked. Your friend's idea saved us, but there's a problem." "The fleet," said. "Mentioned a fleet in orbit. Even with the conspiracy exposed, those ships are still there. Still armed. Still loyal to government back home." The Empress nodded. "Our military is mobilizing, but it will take hours to mount a proper defense. The fleet could destroy this planet before we're ready." "How many ships?" asked. 50 capital-class warships, against our current orbital presence of 15 ships." Thought for a moment, then he looked at, "What's the response time on the network?" Grinned. "You're thinking what I'm thinking." "I'm always thinking what you're thinking. That's why we're still alive." "What are you talking about?" asked. Pulled out a small communication device. "We sent out a call 3 days ago to every human ship, mercenary group, smuggler crew, and independent trader in this sector. We told them something big was happening, that we might need help." "You asked random criminals and traders to fight a military fleet." The Empress looked skeptical. "Not random," corrected. "Humans, and we didn't ask them to fight, we asked them to show up. Humans always show up for each other, it's what we do." "That's insane," one of the guards said. "Civilian ships against warships, they'll be destroyed." "Maybe," said, "but they'll buy you time. Time to get your real military into position. Time to organize a proper defense. And who knows? Humans have won impossible fights before." The Empress studied him. "You would ask your people to die for my empire, after everything our galaxy has done to humanity." "Not for your empire," said quietly. He looked at, "for the people worth saving." An alarm sounded. The commander checked his communication device. His face went pale. The fleet is moving. They're entering attack formation. They'll be in firing range in 20 minutes. Then we have 20 minutes, said. He turned to, send the signal, tell them we need them now. Activated his device. He spoke clearly. This is to all human ships in Sector 7. The call is active. Repeat, the call is active. Rally point is Capital World. We have a fleet that needs convincing to leave. Who's with us? The response came within seconds, then more responses, then hundreds. Voices over the communication channel all saying the same thing, on our way. The Empress looked shocked. How many? All of them, said, reading his device. Every human ship within 3 hours travel. They're coming. That's suicide, the commander said. Probably, agreed. But we're human. Suicide missions are kind of our specialty. The command center in the palace was chaos. Screens showed the fleet in orbit, 50 massive warships arranged in perfect attack formation. They looked unstoppable. The defenders, only 15 ships, tried to position themselves, but everyone knew it wasn't enough. Stood with and the Empress watching the screens. His face was calm but could see his hands were tight fists. He was scared, not for himself, for everyone else. They're charging weapons, an officer reported. First volley in 10 minutes. They're targeting the capital city, civilian areas. They want maximum casualties. Monsters, the Empress said quietly. They were always monsters. We just refused to see it. A new screen activated. It showed the face of an admiral. He looked proud and cold. Empress, you have heard our demands. Surrender immediately. Execute all humans on your world, accept rule, or watch your capital burn. The Empress stepped forward. Her voice was steel. I have a counter-offer. Leave our system now. Return to your territory, face trial for your conspiracy, or face the consequences. The admiral laughed. Consequences? You have 15 ships, I have 50. Do the mathematics. Mathematics, the Empress said, don't account for humans. Humans? The admiral's laugh grew louder. You trust humans to save you. They're weak, scattered, they have no real military. They're nothing but scavengers and... His words cut off. Alarms blared on his ship. His face changed from amusement to confusion to fear in 3 seconds. What? He shouted at someone off-screen. How many? The command center screens updated. New signals appeared. Ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Not 1 or 2, hundreds. The space around the planet suddenly filled with vessels. But these weren't warships. These were cargo haulers with weapons welded to their hulls, mining ships with improvised armor, colony transports with missile pods attached by magnetic clamps, smuggler vessels, trader ships, even one old passenger liner. Every single ship was human, and every single one moved toward the fleet. Suicide, the commander whispered. They're all going to die. No, said quietly, they're going to fight. The lead human ship transmitted on open channels. A woman's voice, rough and tired. Fleet, this is captain of the independent trader vessel Morning Star. You threatened our friends. Bad choice. You cannot stop us, the admiral replied. You're civilians in cargo ships. Yeah, said, we get that a lot, right before we win. The human fleet didn't wait for more talking. They attacked. It wasn't like military combat. There was no formation, no coordinated strategy. Each ship fought its own way. The mining ships built to cut through asteroids drove straight at the vessels and fired their cutting lasers at close range. The cargo haulers used their heavy cargo doors as shields, absorbing hits while smaller ships fired from behind them. The colony transports launched everything they had, then rammed damaged ships when they ran out of ammunition. It was chaos, it was messy, it was absolutely insane, and it worked. The fleet had trained for organized warfare. They expected formations, tactics, predictable patterns. Instead, they faced hundreds of individual captains, each fighting their own way, each unpredictable. The humans used debris as weapons. They hid behind destroyed ships and fired from cover. They worked together without planning, moving like they could read each other's minds. "How are they doing that?" the commander asked, amazed. "There's no communication, no orders, but they're coordinating perfectly." "They're human," said. She finally understood. "They don't need orders. They all know what needs to be done, so they just do it. That's what humans are." The battle was brutal. Human ships were destroyed. People died. But for every human ship that fell, they took a vessel with them. The mathematics the admiral trusted started to fail. 50 ships against hundreds. Professional soldiers against desperate fighters who refused to quit. Then the fleet joined the fight. Now that the humans had disrupted the formation, the 15 warships could strike effectively. They targeted the largest enemy vessels, the ones that threatened the civilian ships. The battle shifted. "New signals," an officer called out. "More human ships arriving and, wait, those aren't civilian vessels, those are military." The screens showed 5 new ships, real warships. Old but powerful, Earth Defense Force ships, the ones everyone thought were decommissioned. Smiled, called in a few favors. "Earth might not have a big fleet, but what we have, we use well." The Earth Defense Force ships moved through the battle like sharks. They knew exactly where to strike, when to hold back, how to maximize damage. They'd fought in every major human conflict for 2 centuries. They were old, but they were experienced. The admiral's face appeared on screen again. He wasn't laughing now. "Fall back, all ships, retreat formation." But the human ships didn't let them retreat. They chased. They harassed. They made every meter of space costly. The fleet tried to form a defensive line, but 3 cargo haulers crashed through it, breaking the formation. Then the warships hit them from the side. It was over in an hour. Half the ships were destroyed. The rest surrendered. The admiral's vessel tried to run, but captain's ship and 2 others boxed it in. There was nowhere to go. The command center erupted in cheers. Officers hugged each other. Someone was crying. The Empress stood silent, watching the screens, her face showing emotion for the first time. Pride, gratitude, wonder. She turned to, "They came, all of them, for us." "For you," corrected. For the idea that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could be better. Humans fight for ideas even more than we fight for survival. Over the next hours, the situation stabilized. The conspiracy was fully exposed. Officials back home, faced with the evidence, condemned the attack and recalled their military. Lord gave testimony that implicated dozens of nobles who supported the plot. They were all arrested. The human ships that fought were offered repairs and supplies. Many captains refused payment. "We didn't come for money," captains said. "We came because it was right." 3 days later, the Empress called a ceremony in the palace. The damage from the attack was still visible, but workers were already rebuilding. The great hall was packed with people. Nobles, human captains, soldiers from both sides, and news reporters from every major world in the galaxy. The Empress stood on the platform, stood beside her, stood below, uncomfortable in formal clothes. "3 days ago," the Empress began, "our empire nearly fell, not to external enemies though they tried. We nearly fell to our own blindness, our own arrogance. We believed ourselves superior. We believed strength came from power and numbers. We were wrong." She looked directly at, a human showed us differently. One man with no army, no authority, no reason to care about us. He risked everything to warn us, to save us. And when we needed help, hundreds of humans came, not because they were ordered, not because they were paid, but because it was right. The Empress descended from the platform. She walked too. In front of everyone, she bowed fully. A empress bowing to a human. "You taught us that strength isn't about power," she said. "It's about conviction, about refusing to surrender to impossible odds, about fighting for what matters even when victory seems impossible. These are human qualities, and they saved my empire." Looked uncomfortable with the attention. "Your Majesty, I just did what anyone would." No, the Empress interrupted gently. What any human would do, that's different. And that's why today I announce a formal alliance between the Empire and Earth, not as superior to inferior, not as ruler to ruled, but as equals, as friends. The crowd erupted, cheering, applause that shook the walls. The news would spread across the galaxy within hours. Earth, the young species everyone dismissed, now allies with one of the three greatest empires. Everything had changed. Later, after the ceremony, found on a balcony overlooking the city. He was trying to escape the attention, as usual. She walked up beside him. So she said, "What happens now?" Shrugged, "I disappear again. That's what I'm good at." "You can't disappear anymore. Everyone knows who you are now." "Yeah, that's going to be annoying." Laughed, then she took his hand. "My mother is making me ambassador to Earth. She says I need to learn human ways, study your cultures, build relationships." "That sounds boring," said. "It does, unless I have someone to show me around, someone who knows Earth, someone I trust." Looked at her. "You're asking me to be your guide." "I'm asking you to be my friend, like you've always been." For a long moment said nothing. Then he smiled, a real smile, not the tired one he usually wore. "Yeah, okay, I can do that." "Good," squeezed his hand. "Because humans don't abandon people, right? You told me that 3 years ago, so you can't abandon me now." Clever, using my own words against me. "I learned from the best." They stood together watching the sun set over the city, a human and an alien princess, friends from different worlds brought together by chance and impossible odds. Below them, the galaxy was changing, new alliances forming, new possibilities opening, old prejudices dying. And somewhere in the distance, a cargo ship lifted off, one of the human vessels returning home. Its captain sent a message to before leaving, "Good work, Earth remembers. When you need us, we'll come again." That was the human way, always ready, always fighting, always refusing to give up no matter the odds. The galaxy had dismissed humanity for centuries, seeing them as weak and primitive. But now, after today, everyone knew the truth. Humans were dangerous, not because of weapons or technology, but because they never, ever stopped fighting for what they believed in. The Empress joined them on the balcony. She looked at and her daughter, hands joined, watching the sunset together. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" asked. "For being exactly what humans are," the Empress replied. "Impossible to predict, impossible to stop, and impossible to forget." Nodded, "We do our best." In the great hall below, the celebration continued. Humans and drinking together, sharing stories, making friends, building something new. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in quiet corners of space, other species watched and learned. The humans were no longer just survivors on the edge of civilization. They were players in galactic politics now, allies worth having, enemies to fear. One human had started it. One man who refused to give up, who fought impossible odds, who believed that doing the right thing mattered more than survival. But it took hundreds more to finish it. Hundreds of humans who answered a call without question, who risked everything for friends they'd never met, who fought a battle they could have avoided. That was humanity's secret. That was what made them special, not technology, not power, just the simple, stubborn refusal to let evil win without a fight. The sun finished setting. Night fell on the capital, but for the first time in centuries it wasn't a dark night. Humans had brought light with them, not in ships or weapons but in spirit, in hope, in the promise that no matter how bad things got, there would always be someone willing to fight back. Looked up at the stars. Tomorrow she would go to Earth. She would learn about these strange, wonderful humans. She would understand what made them different, what made them special, what made them, against all odds, the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they were strong, but because they absolutely refused to stay down when knocked to the ground. and that made all the difference. "Ready for tomorrow?" asked. "No," admitted, "but I'll figure it out. That's the human way, right?" "That's the human way," agreed. And together they watched the stars, ready for whatever came next.